Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, where today we are talking about the players that have shocked us so far this season. Here are our thoughts on the City player that needs to step up.
He's had a really poor start by his wonderful standards. And I feel like, obviously, when we were chatting before the show, maybe to find a City angle as a City fan, I felt Gundogan was a fair avenue to go down.
The Man United midfielder that hasn't hit the ground running.
I just don't think he's maybe what United fans thought he was going to be when they... Well, I mean, and again, Liverpool linked with him, and we haven't really seen anything, really, so far from him.
And the Chelsea superstar that's finally stepped up to the plate. But yeah, his numbers are up across the board, his long-range passing, his tackles and interceptions, and it feels like he's offering that control that Maresca's side are just showing so much more of this year, and they've really tightened up. Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody, and what a treat I have for you guys today. There's no Mikey McCubbin, but I've got Alex Gildea Trott from DR Media and Cop TV, and I've got Stephen as well from Esteem Company YouTube channel. Let's start with you, Stephen. How are you doing?
I'm very good, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Delighted to have you both here. Alex, big game for Liverpool tonight against RB Leipzig.
For sure.
And an excellent start to the season, actually, for both of your sides.
Yeah, not bad. I mean,
Done
we're
right.
obviously going to play each other fairly soon, so somebody's always got to go, as they say in boxing. But yeah, I mean, over the moon with Liverpool start, considering the managerial change and the tactical, tweaks. So far, so good. Yeah, I'm happy.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a very, very solid start for both of your sides. Let's see what happens tonight in the Champions League, or last night as you're watching this. But we're not going to really delve into Man City and Liverpool. I'm sure they'll come up in conversation during the course of this episode. But we're doing a much wider topic of players that have shocked us this season. Now, I think shocked is a good word because it can be used in a positive and a negative sense. And we're going to cover a few players that maybe fit a little bit into both of those categories. Stephen, why don't we kick off with one of your players? Where do you want to go? The floor is yours.
Look, I'm a City fan, so I may as well start with a connection to the club that I love. Liam Delap is the first one that I've gone for. And it's weird to say shocked, given I sort of expected it. But to this level that he's kicked on so early, it's been remarkable. And it's been exciting, if I'm being honest. I watched a lot of the academy for an awful long time. I saw what Liam Delap did at Premier League 2 level, like breaking records, scoring an absurd amount of goals alongside the likes of Palmer and McAtee and co. And of course, I saw him score, for City under Guardiola, a great goal against Bournemouth. It was Bournemouth anyway, but it was brilliant. And it didn't really happen for him for a long time. Haaland came in, he went out on loan, he had his loan at Preston, at Stoke, didn't happen. And recently, as like May 2023, he was voted into an online worst team of the year for the Championship. Then Hull happened. He did quite well. He found a bit of form, scored about 9 goals or something like that. And then Kieran McKenna, being the great manager, has decided to sign him for around 20 million, which a lot of people thought was a bad idea. And I'm so excited to see his development. I absolutely adore Liam Delap. I think he's the kind of footballer that fans should just love. A real throwback, an absolute brute of a player. I think he's got 4 goals in 8. Statistically, easily the best young striker in the Premier League right now. A battering ram, a throwback striker who can do pretty much anything. He runs at people. He's aggressive. He's 2-footed. He takes the early shot. He absolutely loves a tussle. He's physical. He's exciting. And I knew he'd do quite well, but if I'm being honest, I felt like he'd be the kind of guy who scores about 6-7 goals, but then maybe if Ipswich went down, would score 25 the season after to get him back up again. But right now, it feels like Ipswich might have a fighting chance, and a lot of that, to me, feels like it might be on Liam Delap, because I look at him now and think, that's England's number 9 in a few years' time. I rate him that highly.
Yeah, I think it has been an amazing start for him, absolutely. And it's great to see Jack Clarke as well, who's at my club, Sunderland, really starting to adapt to the Premier League as well. What I wanted to ask you, Stephen, on the back of Liam Delap was, with Julian Alvarez leaving in the summer and Erling Haaland's potential slightly patchy injury record, do you think you might regret letting Liam Delap go in a strange way?
I don't think City will ever regret it, but I do as a fan. I think I'm always sort of happy to draw the line between what I feel as a fan and what the club do, because they're very different things. The expectations are different, and naturally as a fan, I'm sort of drawn to the young players that I've watched, for the academy sides. You want to see them make it because it's the best story in football, watching players who play for the academy sides, come through. And I'm aware he did sign, at 16 for City, but still watched him anyway develop. So yeah, I do feel there was, ironically, a spot for him when he finally moved. At the same time, I think you'd have to be a bit of a madman to presume that he would have come back after a decent spell at Hull, not an incredible one, and presume he's ready to step into Julian Alvarez's shoes, who won pretty much everything he can in football. I would have loved to have seen him stay and try, but I think City were probably right in hindsight to take the money with a buyback for what it's worth and see how it goes. Like I wish we kept him though, because it's sort of like he's not the same as Haaland, but he's very similar, in terms of the way he approaches the game. And I would have loved to have seen him get a chance when Haaland, when there's no option for Haaland. We've got him or no one essentially. So a young Liam Delap coming off the bench, just battering people around and roughing people up, it would have been a lot of fun. I might have gone down to 10 men a few times maybe, because that's what Liam Delap loves to do. But I would absolutely love to have seen it. So look, ultimately he scored 4 goals in 8 games for Ipswich. I don't think City are going to regret it just yet. And the levels that City require are best in the world standard, not good mid to lower table Premier League striker, which currently that's where he's at. But I still feel like we could look back on one day and go, probably should have kept him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make a good point about England as well, because with Kane into his 30s, Watkins is, I think, 28, Solanke's 27. Liam Delap does feel like the emerging England striker on the scene, and it'll be interesting to see, whether he's capped over the next couple of years, but he's definitely on a good path. Alex, who do you want to talk about first?
I'm going to go with Ryan Gravenberch, Dougie. This fella who I watched many times with my own eyes last season, and before that with Ajax and Bayern Munich. And listen, he didn't have the best season for Liverpool last year, but if you come from that stock of the Ajax academy and then you go to Bayern Munich, you got to have something about you. The way that Arne Slot has kind of tweaked his position into one of 2 double pivots has allowed him to become a controller. I mean, the body rolls, the shoulder rolls, how good he is in tight spaces. It's almost been unbelievable for a Liverpool fan to watch him this season compared to last season. And he's made he's won possession more times than any other player in the Premier League this season with 48. When Curtis won Man of the Match against Chelsea, it was one of the few times this season that it wasn't Ryan Gravenberch. Still got so much to offer. He's only 22. And he has been revolutionary for this season for Liverpool. And if you look at the midfield balance between a Szoboszlai and a McAllister and Grav, he can do everything. He can play in any of those roles, but he's found his role now. And that's what I like about Arne Slot. We were chasing aggressively Zubimendi. He preferred his croquetas in the mountains in northern Spain, and that's fine. Yeah, there's a couple of decent tapas bars in Liverpool that go close, but I understand. There's some really good ones. Esto es España, is Luña. Nice Luñalita on the Albert Docks as well.
So there you go, Zubimendi. What are you doing?
So what are you doing, mate? But you're not coming now because you've made your bed, lie in it. But that was probably the best thing that happened to Ryan Gravenberch's career, because Arne Slot's gone, that was our target. I'm a good manager. What I'm going to do is ask you to play in a different role, and then we'll get the best out of you. And he's undroppable for Liverpool at the minute. And as I mentioned, the tight spaces, the turns, the strength. This is a different player from last season. Let's say if we judged his season a 5.5 out of 10 last season, we're looking at an 8 or a 9 now. And it's not just a small jump. It's, like I said, almost unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to say that he's probably been the best defensive midfielder in the Premier League this year. I don't think there's been that many great candidates around Europe so far. With Declan Rice, he's playing a lot as an 8, and he hasn't probably been his absolute best. Rodri's, of course, been injured, so Gravenberch has got to be right up there. In terms of what it means going forward for Liverpool in this position, do you still think they go in for a defensive midfielder next summer, or is he just the man now?
Right now, he's the man. Next season, who knows? You might see a bit of an overhaul in the midfield. I'd keep him as it is. I mean, depth-wise, you're looking at Harvey is injured. He's out at the minute. Who can come on in any of those 3 in the midfield positions, preferably, more central and more attacking. But Curtis Jones can play there, as we saw with Ryan. Maka. Let's not forget Maka's a 10, 8 or a 6, and he's being asked to play as one of 2 6s. So that balance, the synergy, the chemistry is perfect at the minute. But who's to say that Liverpool don't go back into the market? I mean, Zubimendi, there were rumours that he'd be open to chatting to us again, which I think maybe that time's passed now. And you're linked. Well, as soon as De Bruyne and Rodri get injured,
Manchester, apparently, so
you think, well, they're going to steal him off us. But it wouldn't surprise me if Liverpool did go out and buy an out-and-out number 6 in the summer again, yeah.
Fair. I suppose Endo's not getting any younger as well.
Love Endo though.
He fulfilled
what
his role
a footballer
last
against City last season at Anfield, mate. He was incredible.
I'm so jealous of Gravenberch right now because I'm watching a City side, even though we're doing fine, we're unbeaten, and picking negatives out of a billion positives. But the energy he's got, the physicality. He sort of reminds me a little bit of a younger Fernandinho in terms of the way. One of my favourite things in football is when a player lets the ball roll past them, turn and just go past people.
Knowing the space
does it
is there.
all the time. It's such a high IQ level thing.
So
and you can tell that, Slot has really said, look, play deeper and trust your ability a little bit. The tendency, or the one, is to sort of pass it back, to the keeper or pass it to a full-back, when you don't usually play that role.
Everything's forward.
You can tell he trusts himself, the progressive passes, the carrying the ball.
That's the key, the carrying of the ball.
Player.
That's the key. It's like, did he have the confidence to do that last season? Probably not. But what Slot has done is just said, you're my guy. You're going to be our guy in the midfield that starts things off. Against Brentford, he was man of the match. He carried the ball from the edge of his own. We conceded a corner. He carried it from the edge of his own box, and we won a corner, and it was all him. And like I said, not a traditional shirt number, 38. Thiago left, so he could easily get the number 6 from next season if he wants it. But he's 22.
Where do you stand on big numbers in football? I can't stand it.
Yeah.
I'm a shirt number aficionado, so if both of you want to test me right here, right now, on any Premier League shirt number in the last 25 years, I reckon I've got a decent chance.
What's Phil Foden's then?
47.
Well
that's easy, isn't it?
Nathan Collins at Brentford.
22.
I have no way of checking whether that's accurate. But
I'll get that check, mate.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I've actually seen a TikTok of an Australian guy doing exactly
Oh, no, I've seen that, but he's rubbish compared to me. No, honestly.
That's like Family Fortune stuff.
No, it is. It's like Rain Man.
I can't do that.
I think we were planning on filming a social video afterwards. I think
It's
we might
gonna
have
be
to rip
that
up the script and do that. I think that would be much more entertaining. Right, let's move on to my first positive, and I want to talk about Raul Jimenez because I think it's easy to forget that this guy went 33 league games without scoring after that horrific head injury. The clash of heads with David Luiz. He was out for 8 months. It actually felt like it could have been even longer, but actually the psychological effects seemed to take way longer. And in his final year at Wolves, he didn't score. Last year at Fulham, his first year, he was signed for just 5.5 million. I think most people thought that's just someone to fill the bench, really. Mitrovic had left, going to Al Hilal. Rodrigo Muniz was really their guy last year. I think Jimenez scored 2 on the final day, but up until then he barely featured from about sort of February, March time. But this year he's been brilliant. I think he's had a goal contribution each of his last 5 games. He scored 4 in that time, including goals against City, Newcastle. He's done really, really well. And below the bonnet in terms of his numbers, his shots on target, the distance from which he takes his shots from goal are the best records of his career now. And his expected goals and assists per 90 is up at, I think it's about 0.85, which is getting close to sort of Haaland levels. And obviously, it's really early days in this season. But Fulham look really good. And I've got to kind of hold my hand up because I had them, I think in my predictions, I had them 17th. And I thought that was mainly because João Palhinha had just been sold. I thought that was going to really destabilise them. To be fair to me, it was still a stupid prediction, but they hadn't signed Sander Berge at this time.
The platform to defend your own self is great. Yeah.
But they hadn't signed Sander Berge at this time or Joachim Andersen. Right. But still, it was a stupid prediction. And at the moment, it looks like Fulham will be comfortable mid-table, maybe have an outside bet of challenging for Europe, maybe at a push. I mean, Newcastle haven't looked particularly impressive. I don't think Man United have been particularly impressive. Maybe they could get amongst it. Maybe that's a step too far. But Raul Jimenez has been absolutely crucial. And it did feel like, at Wolves, particularly in his first year, I think he scored 17 goals in 2019-20, and he was being linked with Juventus. He's been linked with Man United. People were really, really excited about where this guy was going to go. He always felt like he was slightly further into his career than you'd want for a top move to a club of that calibre. But he's back at that kind of level right now, which, given everything he's gone through, I think is just one of the feel-good stories of the season.
I absolutely love Raul Jimenez. Yeah. I absolutely think what he's achieved since that injury is quite remarkable. I mean, the stats show that he went 33 games without a goal after that injury, and that must have almost been for him as bad as the injury in terms of, why can't I score? I'm trying everything. I'm desperate. Gets this move to Fulham. Again, it's not a massive gamble at 5.5, but there's still a player there. And I remember in 2019-20 when Liverpool won the league, him and Adama, that was a naughty combo. Yeah. And if he could get it, 9 out of 10 times he doesn't, but if he can get to the byline and deliver that ball for Jimenez, there's not many better finishers in that kind of 8-yard area just outside the 6-yard box where he's just clinical, wraps it, heads it. The assist against Man City was one of the best I think I've ever seen.
Genius.
In the sport.
Kanji was flummoxed. It was brilliant, yeah. I love this Raul Jimenez story, and I think we have a tendency as fans, we look at stats a lot because we can measure it, and naturally that's what we look at, how we judge a player. But the Raul Jimenez story, I honestly love it because I'm fascinated by psychology in sports and how much it can, impact a player. And look, he could have died. I'm not even exaggerating there. He fractured his skull. He has a young family, that kind of stuff. And look, as you get older, you view life and success through different prisms and so on. And I'm recently a father myself, and I found myself so much more risk adverse because I start to think about my family more.
Right.
There's no way as a striker, as combative as he is in general, his whole game was about being bullish and a beast up front. They were the words used to describe him. Naturally, he was more cautious. He was wearing a headband for so long.
Which was weighted on the side of his head as well.
Still is, isn't it?
And also a permanent reminder of his fragility. When you're sort of painted as this picture of a beast, and all of a sudden you're wearing this constant reminder of how fragile life is. That takes a long time to get over. And for him to suddenly find his confidence again and find his best form, so much of it is psychological. And it really is genuinely a feel-good story because, I mean, as you said, the stats are remarkable. But more than that, I think it's, him finding himself again. Probably isn't a coincidence that Adama Traore is there alongside him, taking him back to that 1920 season where him, and I witnessed it, terrorised Man City, and I think it's a great story, and I think there's hardly anyone that wouldn't be happy for him in football because those things, a career can just change like that, and it would have been so easy for anyone to give up on him, because they would have felt he was shot, but he's back, and he's back to his best, and it's a victory for patience and human understanding, I would argue.
And also the form that he's now regained with Mexico as well. They just beat America.
Bicycle kicks and everything, isn't it?
Yeah, incredible. And like you said, there's not many, in this day and age anyway, there's not many feel-good stories around in football. You have to really dig them out and find them and really, highlight them. But this is one for the ages. I mean, he's still got a few years ahead of him. Whether another big move is on the cards, I'm not sure. But all he can do is keep banging in them Premier League goals for Fulham and making his country proud. With Mexico, obviously, he got a massive opportunity in a couple of years to really, make his country proud when the World Cup goes there as well. So, like you say, it's a beautiful story, this one.
Long may it continue. Raul Jimenez. Right, we've had the beautiful story. Let's maybe bring forward a negative in terms of a player that's maybe shocked us so far this season. Who wants to go first? Stephen, do you want to go first?
I don't think I'll be able to show my face at the Etihad again after this, but look, I put Gundogan with a billion caveats. Big asterisks everywhere, all right?
It's going in. Friendly fire.
Look, shocked because I remember just how good Ilkay Gundogan is. And I am not naive enough to think that won't return. But he's had a poor start. He's had a really poor start by his wonderful standards. And I feel like, obviously, when we were chatting before the show, maybe to find a City angle as a City fan, I felt Gundogan was a fair avenue to go down. Even, I think, in my defence, Guardiola even said after the Newcastle game, it's probably the worst he's ever seen Gundogan. Like, he had a shocker of a game and nothing came off. I think history always paints a picture of a player more generous than it is. Like, I'm not stupid. I know Gundogan still had games every now and then where he looked a little bit slow, and I do think a lot of his struggles so far have come because he's been asked to do a lot more than he should be. He turns 34 tomorrow as we're recording this, so he's not getting any younger, And I do think he's played more football than planned with no Rodri, De Bruyne injuries. Foden's had a really slow start to the season, I think for various reasons. So I think Gundogan is sort of struggling because of the expectation and also adapting once again to the Premier League after a season at La Liga. But he has been poor, and he'll be the first to admit it, I'm sure. But I think it's surprising me just how slow he's taken back to the Premier League. I do think it might come back with time, but I think City fans collectively have been a little bit disappointed. And I'm not going to, stick the dagger in because I know how good he is, and I know Gundogan is the master at making people look stupid. I could be sat here in 5 months now watching him score, a brace in a cup final again and embarrassing United or whatever. That's just as likely to happen as the alternative. But right now, it has been a poor start to the season for him. And I guess I was taken back a little bit because my memories of him are Captain Fantastic, treble-winning captain and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a disappointing start to the season for him, unfortunately. But City fans, I love him. I love him. He will be back. He'll make me look like an idiot. But we all have to admit, I think so far, he's not been the solution that City needed right now. We need pace and energy. And alongside Gundogan, we've got Kovacic and Bernardo. It's looked leggy.
I think with Gundogan coming back, I mean, it was worth the gamble. I think, he had to leave Barcelona for whatever reason. He's come back home. I actually have Gundogan down as one of the best midfielders in the last 10 to 15
he's
years.
brilliant.
You know, I do have him up there in terms of the clutch moments, the leadership. I mean, I'd probably have another Premier League title if it wasn't for him as well. Or 2 maybe.
Love you,
so
Ilkay.
yeah, cheers Ilkay. And Klopp actually was the one that spotted you in the first place, wasn't he? So, but yeah, I think that's a little bit harsh though to have him down as a shocker. I mean, like you said, he's 34, he's coming back. I mean, the change in pace from, you know, strolling around in La Liga coming back to the Premier is going to wake him up a little bit. But to have him down as a shocker, I don't know, mate.
We were discussing
Liverpool fan defending a City player.
Hey, look. No, I know. You're
An ex-Dortmund player. Actually. That's what I'm defending.
You're absolutely right. And there'll be some City fans thinking, "What is he on about?" But I mean it from a fair perspective, and I don't think he's the problem. But I don't think he's been as good as the player that left right now, and that could come back with time. But, you know, I thought, let's be honest, I'm a City fan. I'll turn the lens towards us a little bit and be honest about. And it has surprised me because, you know, I think we hoped as City fans he would slot in a lot more seamlessly. And look, I'm not saying he's been horrific, but Guardiola come out and said he's been, you know, he's had a really poor start by his standards.
That must have hurt him.
So, I think he also said Gundogan's so much better than that, and he knows that. And he was better in the next game against Slovan Bratislava. Right. So I'm not saying he's been diabolical, but I think it shocked me because I think we all hate getting older. We all do, and there's nothing more sort of humbling as a football fan when you see your favourites getting a bit older. It sort of reminds you that time waits around for no one. And like Ilkay Gundogan's 34 tomorrow, and you're thinking, oh, he's getting a bit older.
Quite philosophical. This
episode, I'm that kind of person, you know.
I
do think like. It's a bit of a stark reminder that even for City, like time waits around for no one, you know, and we do need to invest in some younger players and some legs. And look, I'm not calling out Gundogan. I love him. I think he's brilliant. He's probably going to make me look this conversation looks stupid in 2 months from now.
Yeah, when he's
of course it will, but I hope it does because it means I'm wrong.
Yeah,
so it's one of those things where I just thought, you know, City fans have been a little bit, I think, disappointed, but not angry, but disappointed by the quality so far. I expect it will take time.
Do you put the lens, as you said, on a few of the other City attackers? Like Foden's had his issues clearly at the start of the season, some of that injury, illness related, but have we seen enough attacking returns out of Grealish, out of Savio yet? Have we seen Doku, you know, really start to deliver the numbers that talent probably should?
No, I don't think so. I think Foden, Guardiola keeps talking about mental stuff, the mentality. He talks about when Foden's happy mentally. I think there's stuff going on there that I don't think any of us probably need to know about. I don't know what it is, but he's not. Guardiola's mentioned a lot that Phil Foden is always fit. He's always ready when he's ready. So I don't think it's a fitness thing going on there. I think everyone knows how much Guardiola loves Phil Foden as well. So I think there's probably something going on there that we don't know about. Whatever it is, I'm sure, you know, he'll be fine. He's Phil Foden. He's so good. What it is, he's needed to ease back slowly. De Bruyne, when you've got a player that good, people lean on him. Subconsciously, they lean on him. You know, it's hard not to when you've got the best creator probably in Premier League history. So I think City now, without him, without Rodri, who's such a remarkable creative outlet as well, and people forget that Rodri's not just a brilliant defensive midfielder, he's a genius going forward. He is. He's 10 goals, 10 assist level player from the number 6 role. So we've lost that. Like the Rodri diagonals to the back post, which is so synonymous with City. We've lost the best passer and crosser in world football. And a lot of it's fallen on Gundogan and Kovacic and Bernardo, and they ain't those guys in that way. You know, they are brilliant footballers, but they're not, you know, Phil Foden.
Sort of world-class moments consistently.
Yeah, they're not 25 goals from midfield Foden or 25 assists from midfield Kevin De Bruyne, you know. So I understand that. I'm not blaming Gundogan for it. I do think Gundogan would be a lot better if Rodri and De Bruyne are around him to pick up some of the slack, so to speak. Not slack, just do things that he's not necessarily there to do. He's there to knit play together. And I think, look, Jack Grealish has actually started to find a bit of form recently. Savinho, it's his first season. He's a 20-year-old. I expected, you know.
I think he's looked really
he's
bright.
Looked good, yeah, he's looked good, and he looks really good. And I'm already regretting choosing Gundogan.
No. I think it's a fair enough pick. It's also good to, you know, analyse your own team, as you say. Yeah, it's definitely not over for him this season. And yeah, as you say, I think a lot of these players will improve as the season goes on. It is quite interesting, the amount of noise on social media you see about Arsenal fans complaining about their injuries, bleating, I would say, about their injuries. And you've just listed, you know, De Bruyne, Rodri out for most of this season so far. Walker's missed games. Like
fifth of our squad, literally. It's a lot of players.
Yeah. Man City don't complain about that, though. You know, the Gunners will.
Pep doesn't let you. Pep's like, it's another day, get on with it.
Yeah, for sure. Right, AGT, next one. Who's for you in terms of a negative, maybe?
I'm going to go for Manuel Ugarte, who joined in the summer from PSG, had a decent season with PSG. So far, I mean, listen, there's time to change. He's comes with very good pedigree. He was known as the kind of breaking down the play, combative, aggressive in the tackle, not really a ball carrier. Looked a little bit lackadaisical in possession against FC Twente when I watched him. But I think across 4 appearances in the Premier League, it's 106 minutes. It's around about 26 and a half minutes per game at the minute. As experienced United going through a massive transitional period, still learning what their best team is. But if you've been brought in for over 40 million, United fans will expect you to hit the ground running. And if you don't, and you look ahead and, Eriksen and Casemiro are ahead of you as a 23-year-old, I think you've got to do a bit of soul searching and find out why. Again, like I said, there's still time to turn it around, but yeah, I just don't think he's maybe what United fans thought he was going to be when they. Well, I mean, and again, Liverpool were linked with him. It wasn't just Manchester United, so they got him, and we haven't really seen anything really so far from him. I'm not sure what you think of him from a rival's perspective.
I'm not sure he's what they needed. I think PSG will be happy they got João Neves for about the same cost,
and
that
feels ripping it up.
Yeah, like he looks like the approach of a DM, same type of player as Kante in terms of it's all about energy and industry, but he just doesn't seem quite as smart, or quite as good at winning the ball as Kante is. And I don't know if he's exactly what United needed, and it feels like they want someone to take the ball from the centre-backs and sort of do the deep-line playmaker thing. Casemiro is not that guy. No. Eriksen probably, it's not really him either, I would argue. And then you've got Mainoo, but he probably looks like he wants to be an 8 and get forward a little bit. And I think Ugarte's got a little bit of that where, look, he did a run against Brentford in like the 96th minute the other day where he just burst past a few people and got off the pitch. He's a good runner with the ball, and I do wonder if he's what United need. And there'll be better players. There has been better players in Ugarte as well that have struggled in the current United toxic cauldron. So I do wonder if it's a lot for
quite
him.
A big factor. I mean, he arrived after they'd just lost 3-0 to Liverpool. I was at that game, and he was like paraded on the pitch before the game. Then they lose 3-0 at home to Liverpool, and the mood to start the season couldn't have really been any worse. And you're joining a new club in a new country, obviously. I don't know what is English like, but I wouldn't have thought it's anything special at the moment. Still a young man. He only had 1 year at PSG, then he's moved on. Like, his confidence must be a little bit all over the shop. Having said that, according to all reports, he was the guy that the Man United hierarchy identified, and they got him. So,
but was it more of an Ineos signing, or was it a Ten Hag? Because initially when he joined, I remember in an interview, it quite shocked me. He said he's going to take weeks, if not months, to get ready for the Premier League. Fitness, sharpness. And yeah, his integration hasn't been very seamless.
No, I do think Ten Hag makes quite strange public statements, to be honest, though. And I certainly wouldn't have said that about a new signing. I mean, he might say it privately to him, ease you in. But I think it's been clear that ever since Ten Hag arrived, that his dream signing that position is Frenkie de Jong. But Frenkie de Jong has no interest in leaving Barcelona, where he's on a ridiculous contract to go to Man United when he's got the chance of picking up 25, 30 appearances a season and challenging for major honours. So,
essentially, did he play for Ajax? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? Ten Hag bought all the ones from Ajax that he thought were the best ones and left Ryan Gravenberch to go to Liverpool.
There we have it. There we have it.
Big up. Nice one, Eric.
Yeah, for sure. Right, let's move on to my first negative. I'm going to talk about a player that I really, really love in Dominik Szoboszlai. But I am a little bit disappointed with how this transfer's gone. And that is not to say that it can't turn around. He's still a young man. But I just expected so much because at RB Leipzig, once he arrived there and then was promptly injured and missed 6 months of football, his next 2 seasons were really, really impressive. I think it was over 10 goals, over 10 assists in all competitions. He won the DFB Pokal in both of those years. And when Liverpool got him, I thought, here we go. This is a player that could probably be in the squad of any player of any team in the world, and felt like he had real elite Champions League quality. Last year, I don't think it was a disaster by any means whatsoever, but we're still at a stage like a year and a couple of months into his, Liverpool career, and I think it's 44 Premier League appearances, 3 goals, 3 assists. And I just want a little bit more from him, especially in a slot side where he has now been given a lot more sort of importance as that kind of number 10, playing a little bit further forward. Like last year, I felt like because Fabinho and Henderson and Milner and all these legends of the game had left, and they were sort of resorting out their midfield balance, or Liverpool legends at least. That he was doing a lot of running.
I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, I mean,
Milner,
I don't think Milner's a legend.
Of course he is.
He is.
Best
he is,
free
but
signing in Premier
I'm
League
pretty sure
history.
kids in Kuala Lumpur aren't going, James Milner.
You'd be surprised, man.
But my point is that like he was doing a lot of defensive work last year, and he's got an amazing engine on him.
Yeah.
Sometimes feels like last year he was kind of fading towards the end of games a little bit, was getting a little knackered, particularly from March onwards. I think he slightly faded. This year I thought this is Dominik Szoboszlai's year. Like, he hasn't had a big summer with Hungary. They haven't gone deep in a major competition, unlike so other many players that we've seen struggling at the start this year. Like, I think Rice has struggled at the start this year. Partly that's due to the amount of games he played at the summer Euros. Dominik Szoboszlai, I didn't feel like there was that many excuses, and Liverpool are playing well, but I haven't seen enough from Dominik Szoboszlai just so far. I mean, AGT, you're the guy with the knowledge. You're the guy that sees him on a week-to-week basis. I mean, hopefully we all have knowledge, but what are your thoughts on Szoboszlai so far?
Thanks for clarifying that, because some people don't think I do.
I know nothing.
Do you know what? I think the first goal he scored was the third game of the season last year against Aston Villa. Left foot strike across the goalkeeper. A screamer against Leicester in the Cup. Screamer against West Ham in the Cup. All these Hungarian Steven Gerrard number 8 comparisons start appearing out of the... Well, give him time. You know, De Bruyne was at Chelsea first. So... You're right. We do need to see a bit more. He was interviewed recently about his position in Arne Slot's team, and he said, "Yeah, I'm not scoring or assisting that many, but I'm doing the dirty work," as he said. And that those numbers don't lie, because he does run a lot.
Yeah.
And you come from a Klopp team that had the biggest, running stats out there in terms of Wijnaldum, Henderson, Fabinho all getting around. He's contributing in that way, and that can't go undervalued. However, what we see for Hungary is a different Szoboszlai as to what we've seen for Liverpool so far. He's not on free kick duty, which he is for Hungary. He takes penalties for them as well, I think. But we would like to see more goals and assists. And when Curtis Jones came into the team against Chelsea, it was almost thought that's going to be a straight swap. It will be Curtis in for Szoboszlai in that 8. But Curtis was deeper and still managed to score and impact the game. So, listen, is it a good signing? Time will tell. I think, the first season... Like you said, in March, he faded away. Did he not want to be injured for Hungary in the Euros? There's maybe a bit of that. But we'd like to see some more. I think somewhere around the 10-10 mark is decent. I saw him score away in the Europa League last year at Sparta Prague. 3 goals in the Prem. I think he got maybe 5 or 6 in total. So this season, if we can get 10 goals and 10 assists, and he started slowly, obviously, then I think we can look at that and say, right, now you go and explode in your third season. But... he runs the risk slightly of being dropped by Curtis Jones at this minute, I'd say. Yeah,
absolutely. I think his shots have fallen to the lowest of his career. His key passes, so his chances created have fallen as well. In terms of his expected goals and assists per 90, he's between Marcus Rashford and Iliman Ndiaye, who Iliman Ndiaye has played really well at the start of this season, but playing for an Everton side that's struggling. Rashford's taking criticism for his performances. I just want to see more, because I think he's a really talented player.
It's interesting you say that in terms of lowest shots, because I don't know if you remember that you were at the game. United Liverpool were 3-0, right? We're doing rondos, taking the mick.
Yeah.
And he gets this opportunity where 9 times out of 10 you put your laces through it, run off and celebrate, slide on your knees and all that. But for some reason, considering last season how much he did shoot, this year it's like, just pull the trigger, man.
Yeah.
Stop passing it around on the 18-yard box.
It's
just
probably
get it
manager stuff though, isn't it? Obviously Slot wants to play football a bit different to Klopp, and sometimes players do sort of they try and do the right thing.
But last season, Steve, he would have swiped
different manager, isn't it? Sometimes people do try and impress the manager, so to speak. And look, I think what usually happens is players they sort of go really far one way to the extreme, then the other, and snap back somewhere in the middle. Like he's obviously maybe being a bit overcautious right now, where last year maybe too gung-ho, he'll probably find the middle ground. He's only young still, so
yeah.
Look, I'm defending Szoboszlai here, and you defend.
Carry on.
What's
You guys
going
are
on?
just working for each other.
They say it's the friendly rivalry.
Yeah.
We just want the City Liverpool back, that Arsenal nonsense. You know what I mean? Boring.
Fair enough. Right. Well, we've got one more positive and one more negative each. Let's race through these, because we've been talking in great depth and hopefully great detail about all of these. AGT, who's your next one?
For the positives,
Well, you could be either.
I'll go positive. I'll go Bryan Mbeumo. Now, many people say this isn't really a shock, because he's got double figures in goals and assists for the last 3 seasons now, was bought by Brentford for 5.8 million in 2019, ripped up the Championship as well. And he might look a bit older than he is, and I think that's why people maybe don't give him the...
There's nothing wrong with that, guys.
Well, no,
nothing
absolutely nothing wrong. I'm not saying there is. But I think he's just turned 25, and if Tottenham, if Chelsea, if Liverpool, if Arsenal...
Yeah, he does look older.
He does look older.
Well,
Sorry,
yeah.
Brian. Millions of pounds.
If all of these top clubs, and I'll maybe even include City if Savio doesn't work out too well, you know, if you're in the market next season for a Premier League proven, experienced right winger, which Liverpool might do if Mo Salah leaves,
doesn't it?
well, if Liverpool, you know, are looking, then he ticks a lot of boxes for someone that can score and assist. Let's not also forget the variety of goals that this guy scores. I think 28 Premier League goals so far. I say variety, 27 of them have been with his left foot. But if you look at how sharp he is from the whistle, as we know, he scored 2 goals this season before the first minute. Some of them are overhead kicks, some of them are on the break, tapping it into the back post. He actually reminds me a little bit, but just on the other side, and an earlier, maybe Southampton version of Sadio Mane.
Yeah.
And there's been rumours to say that Liverpool like the look of him. I wouldn't rule it out.
It's a good sweet spot age, isn't it? Now we've established he's younger than he looks.
That's
It's one of those things where, like, 25 there's a nice body of work.
To a big club
there where you're used to the Premier League. Nothing's going to shock him if he moves to Liverpool. He's played at all the grounds. He's played against all these sides, and yeah, I think he's obviously stepped out the limelight of Tony a little bit as well. So I think there's something you see a lot of that in football.
Getting injured as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do think in football,
take it all on.
I think in general you see players step up. Like, I'm a sort of firm believer that you've got talented players. Even on the bench, usually if one, for whatever reason, isn't there, someone steps up. And we see that a lot of City when we talk about Gundogan suddenly comes scoring 20 goals one season or whatever. Like, I do feel like, you know, Mbeumo, he has that sort of knack as well. I do think he revels in being the main man. And look, there's a lot of... Tony was a magnetic personality for good and bad reasons sometimes, and he absolutely drew the limelight, and without him there, it's his chance. And he's at an age now where you start to know who you are. He's not at his peak yet, but he's gone past that, you know, prodigy stage, you would argue, mid-20s, confident, the main man, and he's proven. And look, could he do what Liverpool need to... Liverpool, look, the biggest requirement is, can he embarrass Man United, you know?
I think
exactly, so there you
Brentford.
go, you know.
But I think his best goal return, he got 9 2 seasons in a row before this season. He's already on 6.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to smash that. And I think if he ends up with... I mean, he could end up with 16, 17. I don't think that's out of the question, considering we've still got, 3/4 of the season still to go. He's going to... I mean, if they bought him for 5.8 million, how much could they sell him for now? I think 50, around about 50.
Yeah, 50, 60 million.
Because of the age, the profile, the Premier League experience. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah, he's
big
done
fan
well.
Of his.
He's done well. We were talking about him last week on the show about as a potential move to Spurs. That feels like the sort of calibre of player that Spurs need to get on a regular basis, like a little bit more Premier League proven, more goals in that side as well. Stephen, who's your next one?
Milenković.
Nice.
I love signings that just suit a team perfectly. Like a great example of just talent identification that fits how a team plays and fits exactly what a team needs. Look, Nuno has made Forest unashamedly passive, and I don't mean that in a negative way. They know who they are. You know, they're very happy to sit back, invite pressure, and then just hit you with pace. You know, with Aina, Moreno, Hudson-Odoi, Elanga, they know who they are.
As
the big
we know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they're happy doing that. And if you're going to do that, you probably need a guy who you can just stand there and win headers as opposed to jump, because he's 6'5", he's an absolute beast, and he also suits the City ground as well. You know, like, it's an old school stadium, passionate fans, and he's a warrior, a proper leader, a throwback of a defender, 6'5", a beast. Revels in physical duels, a bit of a dominant physical bully, about 12 million, alongside another 12 million signing in Murillo. It's a really, really good defensive partnership, and I think they've got like the second best defensive record in the league. Yeah, so he's been a phenomenal signing, and he already looks 3-4 times the value that they paid for him, and yeah, he just suits them perfectly. And once again, that really nice sweet spot of an age. You know, I think he's about 27, 26, something like that, mid-20s, years of experience for Fiorentina. I think actually, he probably suits the Premier League more than he does Serie A as well, because he revels in that sort of physical battle, and he revels in the Premier League's intensity. Yeah, just a phenomenal player, an instant legend. And when I was doing a bit of research for this, he's apparently a Nottingham Forest fan rule is we don't talk about Milenković because they don't want anyone to know about him.
Right, the top secret.
Yeah.
Well, I think the secret's out for sure. I totally agree with you. I think he's been one of the value signings of the season, to be totally honest. And yeah, you're right to point out what he did at Fiorentina, helping them to 2 Conference League finals. They also reached the Coppa Italia final, couldn't get over the line, but it felt like a major coup given his experience for Serbia as well, for Nottingham Forest to get him. And there's a really nice balance there between Murillo, who's obviously an amazing ball player, can go on these mazy dribbles, and Milenković, who just wants to roll his sleeves up and get
Just
stuck
push
in.
people about, and I love that.
Yeah.
He's
a
just wants to
throwback.
fight,
Yeah,
He's a real throwback.
He's brilliant for sure.
I think there might be a notable mention to his teammate Chris Wood in terms of shock starts for the season. I mean, what is it, 7 in his last 10?
He's been remarkable. But is anyone surprised about Chris Wood anymore? I feel like he's just a 10-goal-a-season guy. I think I saw it was on Match of the Day. They did it about 6 months ago. Most seasons of scoring 10-plus goals in the Premier League. And he was up there with, like, Aguero. Aguero obviously did a lot less time in the Premier League. But it's still remarkable. I think he did it 3 seasons in a row at Burnley.
From New Zealand, isn't it?
From New Zealand? Yeah. He's brilliant. We've actually got an interview coming out with him this Friday on Sky Sports Premier League. Have a look out for that.
Nice link, yeah.
Yeah,
Great
exactly.
Nice
Right, the next player I'm going to talk about is a player in Moises Caicedo, who I think went through a little bit of a tough time at the start of last season. I think it's fair to say. The huge furore around, is he going to Chelsea? Is he going around to Liverpool? Obviously, that huge fee, it wasn't really that helpful. He joined at the same time as Lavia, Ugarte. Chelsea had just finished 12th. And he was really still pretty inexperienced. He'd only started, I think, around 40 Premier League games for Brighton. Prior to that, he'd gone on a 6-month loan spell in Belgium and then had about 35 games over in Ecuador. He'd played less than 100 games, and suddenly he was worth over £1 million per appearance, really. And yeah, he started. I don't think he sunk so much, but it was difficult in the first 6 months. I think there was a lot of scrutiny on them. Pochettino's Chelsea didn't get off to the start that everyone thought they would. They obviously finished pretty strongly. But this season, it feels like he has really, really stepped up. And I think he's been one of the best midfielders in the Premier League this year. And I say that, and it doesn't feel like a crazy statement, because I don't think the quality in central midfield in the Premier League this season has been particularly strong. Like the key names that you normally expect haven't maybe delivered in the same sort of way. But it feels like Enzo Fernandez's time is kind of limited, or he can't really be a guaranteed starter because Caicedo has to start. And then Romeo Lavia, I thought, was absolutely awesome against Liverpool and against
half,
City.
As a City fan here,
as well.
Talking about Lavia, I'm like, another one that could have been again.
I know, what could have been. But yeah, his numbers are up across the board, his long-range passing, his tackles and interceptions, and it feels like he's offering that control that Maresca's side are just showing so much more of this year, and they've really tightened up. Defensively, I think he's offering a springboard for those attacking players. And it felt like Chelsea's summer business was again a bit scattergun. But Maresca's just been like, pretty much, this is my starting 11 in the league. This is my starting 11 in the Conference League. And fair play to Maresca, I think he's done a much better job than everyone expected him to. It is still early days, but they were in that game against Liverpool without really offering too much threat. Do you think that's fair to say, GT?
I think Lavia and Caicedo in that partnership, in that game, in that first half, really surprised me. I thought they were really good on the ball. They were calm, composed. We know Caicedo and Lavia were both on the way to Liverpool, so in an alternative universe, maybe it would have been them two and then Jude just ahead. But obviously we're not in that universe, are we? So the real world says
Liverpool
that
cinematic universe.
we love to paint the picture, mate. Got great cricketers as well. Martin, if you are watching. But Caicedo has actually worn the armband a few times for Chelsea this season, and I think if we're all in agreement that Gravenberch has been number 1, he's been number 2.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say. I mean, the huge tests for Chelsea come in the next few weeks. They've got Newcastle, Spurs, United, Arsenal, and I think Aston Villa in their next 7. So we'll see where Chelsea are after that. But Caicedo, fair play. You've proven a lot of people wrong, including myself, who was maybe too quick to judge. Right, Stephen, who is your final one?
Zirkzee.
United.
Yeah, he's been a disaster so far. I think there's no way to paint it. I'm always sort of wary about these things because he's young, and most of these players we talk about, it's like the first seasons in the league or whatever, both be good and bad, and things can just change so quickly in football. I just feel like he's the wrong player at the wrong time for United. And
I think he's a good footballer.
I think he is, but I don't think he's a good Man United player right now. And
No.
I feel like United, basically, they've got such a malaise around the club. They are looking for anything to grab onto. They're looking for fire. They're looking for hunger. They want a Rooney, and everyone wants a Rooney, but that's what they want. They want that aggression and desire. Zirkzee is not that. He's not even close to that. He's much more laconic in his style. And right now, he looks like a man absolutely lost, and he's barely played. He's had the hand. How many starts? 1 or 2, I think. And he looks right now like a young lad in the middle of a messy storm with no real direction. When he gets the ball, he's not really turning towards the goal. His link-up play looks a little bit slow.
Against Liverpool, he looks.
I really hate to say it, but he looks diabolical at the moment. He's obviously better than that. But for 40 million quid, I'm thinking, like, Højlund's about to return as well. He'll minimise his game time. There are already rumours going around that he might be looking for a loan already.
Juventus.
Yeah, and like it seems like a disaster of a signing, and obviously, this should be. I shouldn't be shocked about anyone that United signing these days. Comically, as a City fan, suffering, but like this one again, like I don't know how they do it. I'm most amazed how United continue to find players and seemingly destroy their career so quickly. But it feels like they let Martial go and brought in another guy who reminds me almost immediately. Look, I'm sure there'll be some talent, and he might show it when he eventually leaves United. But right now, Zirkzee is just not the forward that United need, I would argue. I think they need someone, with a little bit more spark. And I know that's sort of reductive. It's a very simple way of looking at it, but I feel like United need that, and Old Trafford need that. And some clubs are more receptive to certain kind of players than others. And I don't think Ten Hag even knows how to use him. I don't think the United fans know what to make of him. And a few United fans who
seem very
friends
split,
of,
don't they?
my friends United fans are like, one of them said he looks like a competition winner at times, and that is very harsh, but some of the cameos have been poor, and I do feel
think he's had a couple of good games as well, though. I think he was very good against Southampton. Admittedly, it is Southampton, but I think there is definitely a footballer in there. Does he have the pace to like break beyond when he's held up the ball and then flicked it around the corner or whatever, and then get into the box? That's actually my biggest concern. Like, he doesn't necessarily seem to get in good enough positions consistently enough. I actually think his build-up play is not too bad, personally. I think he's got very good feet. He was a young player in Serie A last year for Bologna. He didn't score a lot of goals. I think it was around 11.
12, I think it was.
Yeah, so I'm not writing him off just yet, but I agree with you. There's work to do, I think. Is that fair to say, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw of him against Liverpool, he had 2 decent chances that you'd be hoping that your number 9 could stick away. Scored on his debut. Was it Fulham at home? 1-0?
Yeah, it was a nice finish as well.
I think that's 33% of United's home goals this season was that goal. Pretty mad stat that is. But I think even as a Liverpool fan, I thought, he scored on his debut. Here we go. They found one finally. And then as the weeks have gone on, including playing against Liverpool, decent game against Southampton, but the poor kid, I call him a poor kid because him and Højlund, to be honest, they're not out-and-out goal scorers that come with a Teddy Sheringham record from Tottenham to United, or a Van Persie, or a Tevez.
York Van
Nistelrooy, who are guaranteeing you Premier League experience but 20 goals. That's what they're expecting of these lads.
You listen to strikers,
and they're coming into this environment, and it's like...
York and Tevez and Van Nistelrooy and Rooney and people like that. And look, I don't care. As a
easier to track those players when you're winning, though.
Yeah,
they have
that's
won
the point.
trophies.
That's what that fan base is
challenging,
used to. Is the point I'm making? It's like, and it's such a culture shock for United fans and for Zirkzee. Like, and I don't blame him for it. And look, there's obviously talent there, but like, I guess I shouldn't be shocked. But it's like 40 million quid, and it feels like he looks to me currently like a 10 million punt, and it's just United again. And I don't. There's so many. Not many of these players who have this start United turn it around. He might do, but it already looks like the same old story for United.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been good. Hasn't been good at all. AGT, what's your final one?
Final one, and this is a little bit regretful, this one, because I don't want to, call him out too much, because I believe he's a good guy and he's a good goalkeeper. But Aaron Ramsdale going to Southampton, which, you saw him in the playoff final as a Southampton fan, dressing up as a pirate, I think it was.
I thought it was Hagrid.
I didn't realise he was a fan. Was he a fan of Southampton?
Yeah.
I didn't realise.
Oh, maybe it was a pirate. He looked more Hagrid.
Either way. To be fair, I don't watch Harry Potter, so it could be Hagrid. I was a pirate. I don't
Did
know.
he have a big dragon next to him?
I can't remember.
Parrot or dragon,
So you're thinking, again, we spoke about earlier, those good feel-good stories in football. You think, look, Arteta's sounded you out as the number 2. You either accept that, or as a 26-year-old, you go out and, you know, become a number one somewhere. No one really must have wanted him that much. And then obviously the Southampton offer's on the table, and he's thought of his family. I'm assuming he can move, you know, back to a similar place to where he's from. 0 clean sheets so far, 0 wins so far. And again, I don't want to dig him out, but he could be one of the first players to be relegated 3 times before he's 27. You know, with Sheffield United and now Southampton. And in 2023, he was the PFA Goalkeeper of the Year, let's not forget. And a year later, you know, you can't keep a clean sheet to save your life. And again, the defence that's in front of him, are they helping him? Probably not that well. You know, they were 2 up at Leicester the other day. They lost that 3-2. And again, since that interview...
goal in the last minute as well. Just close that. Close
You've
that
got
down.
to close
like,
it.
What are you doing?
But I don't know if you guys remember that interview he did. I think it was with Ian Wright.
Yeah.
And he basically admitted that he struggles to focus.
Ian Wright's face was like, what are you saying this, mate, on camera?
Have you just admitted that, mate?
Yeah.
And Budweiser were like, keep it in. Because I think it was a little brand thing with them. But I think as soon as he's done that, you've shot yourself in the foot. And as I said, he seems like a lovely guy that everyone seemed to get along with. But it just hasn't worked for him. And who knows what the future holds. If you go down again with Southampton, are you going to stay with them and get them back up? Or who else is going to want you, really?
I understand the focus thing as well when you play for a team like Arsenal or City where you don't have a lot to do most of the game. But he's got a lot to do at Southampton. You know, it's hard not to be focused when the ball's coming towards you that often. But I do feel like sometimes you can see a career just change and drift so quickly, can't you?
And that's why it's a bit sad as well, though, because he seems like a good bloke. So I hope he turns it around for his sake. But like I said, the future, I don't know, man.
It's not looking great. Not looking good for Aaron Ramsdale, but fair enough that he went out and got first-team football as well, because it's very easy to sit on a bench and, you know, pick up a few trophies over the next couple of years with Arsenal, maybe. But
he would have been better just one more year of doing that, and then see what you can win at Arsenal this year, and then get.
I mean, look how David Raya is performing now, and it felt like it was still a storyline last year when David Raya was just clearly number one and like deserved to be number one as well, but. Yeah, fair enough. Let's see what happens there. Weirdly, I'm going to finish on a goalkeeper as well in Alphonse Areola, who I think was excellent last year for West Ham. I think he had the second best save percentage in the league after Andre Onana. Andre Onana was obviously a disaster in the Champions League, but actually in the Premier League he wasn't really too bad after a shaky first 6 games or so. But this year, his save percentage has dropped down to the second worst, only above Jose Sarr. They've conceded 15 goals, West Ham. And I think that's the 4th worst record in the Premier League. And look, I'm not putting it all on Areola. There's clearly been a lot of new signings that haven't even been given the game time or haven't really worked out so far. And Lopetegui has also chopped and changed the players in front of him a fair amount as well. There was even that switch to a back 3 against Chelsea a few weeks ago. Mavropanos has played, Tadebo's played, Kilman's played. You know, Zuma and Aged, who were their sort of mainstays last year, obviously out the door. It just hasn't really worked so far for West Ham. And I think Areola's kind of maybe been a little bit of a fall guy of a really poor start to the season from West Ham. Look, he's still a top keeper. I think he had an amazing year last year, as I said. He was great for Fulham on his year there as well. But it hasn't been a great start to the season. I have been shocked by it. So that's my inclusion.
I do think it sort of reminds me a little bit of what happened to De Gea many years ago. Like, last season, like he was good, and like basically all he had to do was keep it simple, make saves, the classic goalkeeper spiel which he grew up doing. And this season, he's expected to use his feet a little bit more, and there's so many keepers who, when this happens, they either they struggle a little bit with it, and it's so easy for that to affect your overall confidence. And the reason I mentioned De Gea is because I remember like about around 2018 to around 2020, that's when De Gea started to have his dip, so to speak. I don't think it's a coincidence that was the emergence of Ederson and Alisson, and when football started to change, and all of a sudden the guy who was a brilliant shot stopper started making mistakes here and there, and it coincided with him trying to do something new. And sometimes when you reset someone's foundations a little bit, it can affect the other part of your game because you're too busy thinking about something else and the basics sort of disappear. And I think there's a little bit of that for him as well, because so much has changed in front of him and the style that they're playing is a little bit different. And I think it's caused a bit of hesitancy, and he's making mistakes that he wouldn't usually do. And I know it's been a bit philosophical this episode, but so much of football is inside your head, and I do think he's been a little bit of a victim here of so much change and turbulence, and maybe having to try and learn something that he might not be suited to, and his world has been rocked a little bit. So he's obviously he's a really experienced quality keeper, and as he said, good last season. I do wonder how much of this is down to the manager, and the changes in front of him.
I think it's also time for West Ham to invest in a new goalkeeper. I know Areola's been on the books a while. Fabianski, I mean, he's probably going to pack it in soon. And they seem to have just been swapping in between those two for years now. And I do think he's a very good shot stopper. Again, this season started off quite well. The Kilman kind of relation. I thought Kilman was actually really good the first couple of games, but you know, it's dropped off massively for West Ham, and now it's got to a point where if Lopetegui loses 2 more in a row, 3 more in a row,
I think it'll probably,
the Eagles will start circling. Unfortunately,
absolutely. No, he needs to up his game, and West Ham quickly need to change their fortunes. Guys, that's been the Lowdown for another week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Really great contributions from Alex and Stephen throughout the episode. Stephen, if the good people at Sky Sports Premier League YouTube channel want to find your work, where can they find it?
Esteemed company with a case of pun on former City legend Vincent Kompany.
Love it.
Very clever.
Alex?
Alex Gildea Trott on all socials. I did try and get the AGT handle, but Simon Cowell is keeping that for America's Got Talent, unfortunately. But The Cop TV on everything, and then DR, not Doctor, DR Sports with my good friend Robbie Lyle and the rest of the crew as well.
Yeah, it's a great crew. Tune in to both of those channels. Thank you so much to both these for coming on the show. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know what you guys thought about our suggestions in the comment section, and we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.